Welcome back to Laurie's Stories. I am your host, and I'm here alone this time. My co-host will be behind the scenes, which is my daughter, Luann. She does an amazing job in editing and getting these podcasts out to you. And then once in a while, she joins me, which is a huge treat. But it's just too much to expect for her and her 18-month-old to drive here every time to help with this podcast. So that is why she is sometimes just behind the scenes. She loves to be here, and I love when she is here. But it is so understandable that she just can't every time. She is first and foremost a wife and a mom, and a very good one at that. So there's a plug for you, Lou. I'm just imagining you sitting there. But anyway, can you guys believe that Christmas is so close? We are already in the holiday season. And I wonder what you're thinking. I wonder if you dread it. I wonder if you love it. I wonder just how this season is for you, because I feel like even though it's always been kind of a joyful season for me, I've definitely had times though where it was painful and it was, it was hard. There were harder seasons. And I'll touch a little bit more on that later in the podcast on why that was for us. But we all have our own hard that we work through. So if you are feeling that this season, just know that you are probably not alone. If you're struggling to feel all the joy or all the things that we're supposed to feel around Christmas, right now I just give you permission that you don't have to feel that. You don't have to feel anything than what you're feeling, because like I've said before, we don't get to choose our circumstances often. We don't get to choose our trials and the things that we go through. The only thing we get to choose is our attitude. And you can do that. You can choose your attitude carefully, even if you are going through a hard time this Christmas season. So I want to start this episode out by reading a page from my book, Joy in the Journey, 365 Whispers of Hope. It's a daily devotional. And I was flipping through December this morning, trying to find something that would be appropriate, something that would encourage people in December, and I landed on like a page and a half. So I'm going to start by reading that to you guys, and then we'll dive into the podcast, okay? And I am getting old, so I have to put on my glasses so I can see the fine print. Uh-oh. Okay, so I chose this one because it goes with what I'll be speaking about later on in the podcast, and it's called "Wise Men Still Seek Him." Just as the wise men set out to seek and find Jesus over 2,000 years ago, so we too are wise who still seek him out today. They followed that bright, shining North Star all the way to Bethlehem, which took faith, just like it does take faith for us still today. Like the wise men did, we too have our star, a true north in the Bible we can follow. I love how Jeremiah 29:13 declares, "You will find me when you seek me with all your heart." I also love how the wise men tricked the evil King Herod and went back home another way after they had found and brought their gifts to Jesus. They must have sensed that Herod had evil intentions. Can you even imagine living in an era when Herod had such a horrendous law passed that all baby boys 2 and under must be killed? By doing this, he hoped to also kill the baby Jesus, whom people were saying was the King of the Jews. Herod's jealousy led him to make horrific choices. I cannot imagine the grief and the horror the moms and dads must have gone through at that time. But Jesus wasn't killed, not then. His time on earth was not done yet. He still had a lot of work to do. Mary and Joseph's grief would come later. They had warnings at times, In Luke 2:35, Simeon told them, "A sword will pierce your own soul." I don't know if they realized what this meant at the time, but I do know everything changed that night in Bethlehem when Jesus was born. Hope was born that night. People knew it and felt it, and some believed and some didn't, just as it still is today. Do you believe, my friend? If not, then you don't need to wait any longer. Open your heart today. Reach out to a trusted friend if you need help, because guess what? He came for all of us. Not just you or not just me, but every single one of us. And then I'm going to read a part of the next page because it goes well together. And I remember when I wrote this, I just was pondering on the Christmas story. And, the older I get, the more meaning it has. And I think I unpack it a little bit every year. So this, I'm going to continue on reading. Much of the world is in a tizzy right now, getting ready for Christmas. I love that. But then I also wonder at times, is everybody really celebrating Jesus? Or are they just caught up in the excitement and missing the true meaning of it all? I hope not. But once again, it starts with us, with you and me. What and how are we celebrating this season? Is it all about the shopping, the presents, and the treats we love to make this time of year? Are we allowing ourselves to stop and reflect and truly express our gratitude? I can't stop thinking about those dear mothers whose babies were killed because Herod wanted to kill Jesus. We can read this account in Matthew 2:18. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. And let's just stop here a minute. I just can't help but think, like, if something like that, of a decree or a law like that was issued today, I immediately think of my little grandbaby boys and, like, I don't know how, I just don't know how you would, like, get over something like that. It breaks my heart just thinking about that and thinking what those mothers went through. But it does say, we can read this, maybe I read that. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. It's heartbreaking. What if today such an order would be issued? Much happened behind the scenes of our beloved Christmas story. Often in the reality of life, someone pays the price or makes way for us to enjoy our blessings. Jesus paid the ultimate price for us. Can we grasp this? He made a way for you and me. This Christmas season, may we keep him in the center of our hearts and homes, our festivities, and celebrate him well. Let's give him all the honor and the glory he deserves. And remember to include him in our celebrations. Jesus, thank you for what you've done. For whosoever will accept you, draw sinners and saints alike to you this Christmas season. We want to learn as Christians to reflect your light in a way that draws the world to you. Let it start with us. So yeah, we all, it's so fun to celebrate Christmas and everything, but some of those things that happened leading up to Christmas when the baby was born, well, I guess it was after the baby was born that he issued this decree. But there's so much more. But that's not, we don't want to just focus on that. We want to focus on that Jesus was born and the joy and the celebration and why we celebrate Christmas. And I know some people don't celebrate Christmas at all, and that's okay. That's between you and whatever you choose to believe. That is okay. And they say, well, Jesus wasn't born during the day we celebrate him anyway, and I believe that. I don't think we actually know when he was born, but to me that's not the point. To me it's just so fun to have a day set aside where we just glorify and we just celebrate him, because after all, he gave it all for us. And then and I I get caught up in the in the tizzy of the season as much as anybody else. I love Christmas. I love everything about it. I love the twinkling lights. I love going into town and seeing the lights. I love the tree. I love it all. I love it all. But I've had to, so I sometimes have to work on myself to remember that, it's so much more than that, to not get so caught up in that I'm so overwhelmed that I don't have anything left to, pour my devotion back to him, if that makes sense. So a fun story, because I love to tell stories. So as most of you know, my husband and I were both born and raised, well, he wasn't born Amish, but he was raised Amish. That's another story for another day. Kind of his story to tell, actually, if he ever does. You could probe him a little bit to write his story. It's an incredible story. Him and his mom sometimes talk about maybe writing their story together, but I am going on a rabbit trail. Anyway, we were both raised Amish. I was born Amish. He was not. And so for many, many years, we were taught that things like a Christmas tree is wrong, or even like any type of decorating, or, we did have very simple and very minimal gifts at Christmas time, usually a little bit something. But my mom had strong convictions about not getting caught up in the Christmas culture. I'm not sure, just making it too much about everything else other than Jesus. And I don't know, maybe I got a little bit of that, but the older I get, the more I'm realizing that we can have both. We can have both. We can keep it about Jesus, and we can also do all the fun things. So anyway, this was way back when our children were, they were old enough to realize what Christmas is about, but we had never, ever put up a Christmas tree before. And this particular Christmas, my husband and I realized that, there is just nothing wrong with this. We are going to do this for the first time. We gathered our children up. We traipsed out into there was public land across from where we lived at the time. We lived out west at the time, and it was gorgeous. There was no shortage of pine and Christmas trees. So we bundled the children up, and we went out there, and we cut down our first Christmas tree, and we took it inside. We set it up, and we decorated it. And I remember, still kind of, this was still a stretch for us. Like, what would our families think? Or we actually are putting up a Christmas tree, we were pretty convinced it was okay. And then I'll never forget how my heart melted when spontaneously the children, I'm not sure if I said that word right, spontaneously? I don't know. Luann, correct me. Spontaneously, the children burst out singing, "Happy Birthday, Dear Jesus." And I just will never forget that. I was like, they know what Christmas is about. It doesn't mean that this is going to take away from Christmas. And it just kind of solidified that in my heart at that time. And you have to remember, coming out of the Amish, you have to relearn so many things that you were taught. And that was one of them, to start seeing that decorating and celebrating and all the things, that it's not wrong. It always comes back to a heart issue. Now, if we make it just about that, then I would caution, but we can do both. We can do both. We can celebrate. We can have all the fun things. And my caution is, though, especially to you young moms with little ones, just don't overwhelm yourself. You don't have to overwhelm yourself. That nobody should be allowed to put expectations on us for what we do or don't do around Christmas time. I also remember the very first time that our family, us and our children, exchanged gifts for Christmas. I'm not sure what we did before that. I can't remember. I just know that finances were tight. And if the children got gifts, I'm sure it was probably very minimal, kind of like how I grew up. So we really didn't know anything different. My husband was raised the same way, just very minimal, if any, Christmas gifts. Same went for birthdays. So I remember when our children were old enough, and they we were getting into the Christmas spirit a little bit more, and they and us decided we are going to draw names for the first time. Now, granted, the children were not very old. They were like, I think they were like maybe 13 and under. Maybe they were more like I don't know for sure, but still pretty young, So none of them had jobs yet. None of them had a lot of money to spend. So we decided we're just, let's just keep it very, very simple. And I have such good memories of us taking the children to like Goodwills and thrift stores that Christmas, and we all bought gifts each other out of secondhand stores. And it is one of my sweetest memories of Christmas. So again, I feel like we don't have to go in debt to celebrate Christmas. We don't have to have the latest and the greatest and the fanciest and the best, because that's not what your children are going to remember in the long run anyway. It's the memories we create. It's the stories we tell around a crackling fire, or it's like maybe even the cookies you decorate with Christmas music in the background. That's some more of my favorite memories when the children were all home. Oh, such good memories. And now it doesn't happen as much anymore because they all have lives and families of their own. And sometimes that is still hard for me. Sometimes I feel myself also almost a little bit back in that season of not really, because the children all live close to us. I cannot complain. The furthest one away is like an hour and 5 minutes or something like that. So we do get to see each other a lot, but not like we used to, But one thing that really helped me deal, I'm not even sure where to start with this and where to end. Maybe I'll back up a little bit. Holidays can be dark and sad and lonely and even depressing for some people. And I know what that season feels like. Maybe you don't have family to hang out with. Maybe you're estranged from your family for some reason. Or maybe, like us, you're shunned from your family. And that, I can honestly say today, the shunning from my family does not hurt anymore, because I have my children around me. We get together for holidays. We celebrate. There's 13, 14, or maybe even 15 of us by now, and it's a house full, and it's loud, and it's chaotic, and it's fun, and it's happy. But it wasn't always like that. So if you are shunned from your family, or if you are simply not invited when they are all getting together for Christmas, and it's so funny because like I was on the phone probably an hour with my mother this morning, and we just chatted. I asked her what they're doing for Thanksgiving, and then I told her what we're doing. And it's just like, it doesn't hurt anymore. We don't even talk about the fact that yes, they're getting together. We are not invited. It's just become such a natural thing. And I was able to let it go after I became more healed with it, and also, have my own family now. But it wasn't always like that. So now I want to go back to the time when it wasn't like that, when we didn't live close to family and our children were pretty young yet, and we couldn't have adult conversations with them like we can now. There were lonely times. There were really lonely times of not having family around us. But I remember one thing that my husband and I started doing in that season was we would look around and see who else needs a place to be invited, who else doesn't really have a place to go. Maybe it was also another family that didn't have relatives living close, or that was shunned, or I don't know. You fill in the blank. Look around your sphere where you are planted. Who needs a hot meal? Who needs a place just to go and hang out? We did that for many, many years. We would invite anybody that didn't have a place to go or didn't have family, or yeah. And I would lovingly kind of say we're going to invite the leftovers. And we did that for many years. And now, now we don't anymore, because now we focus on our family and building our family and our traditions. But I said that because I wanted to ask you, what can you do? What can you do this Christmas season to make it hurt less? If you're hurting, if you're lonely, if you're sad, maybe you've lost even a loved one. I can think of about 5 of my friends right here in our community who have lost loved ones in during this time of the year. Not just this year, but in like in years past, like maybe 5 or maybe even 6 years. And in fact, we just had another death in our community, not last, it was yesterday, Sunday, a week ago from this yesterday. A little boy that just died very suddenly from an aneurysm. So there's another family that has grief, the memories of his death so close to the holidays. So even though we can't or we don't invite people over anymore for the holidays, my husband and I still love to make a practice of doing something for them around the time of their loved one's death. One thing we do is we just go and buy a whole bunch of poinsettias and we take them and we just let them know that we're thinking of them, that they're not alone in their grief. So I don't know what you can do, but even if you're hurting, if you can reach beyond yourself. My mom always said, so she taught me this. I wish she could listen to my podcast so she knows how much I appreciate the things that she taught me. She always said that, and remember, her life was not easy, but I remember she taught me this: you can always look around and find somebody that has it harder than you have yourself. So I think that's kind of my challenge for this December to all of us. Let's look around us. Let's look beyond what we're going through, what we're feeling, what we're facing, and look for somebody that might have it just a little bit harder, that might be just a little bit sadder than we are. And the ways that you can help are, there's no limit. It doesn't have to look a certain way. There was times we couldn't have afforded to buy poinsettias, and it maybe was just a plate of homemade cookies, or which people love those, by the way. At one time, I did tiny little loaves of homemade bread. People loved that. That's inexpensive. It's something homemade from your kitchen, and you can attach a note to it, let them know you're thinking of it. There is so many ways that we can reach out and beyond ourselves. And there is something about just looking and reaching beyond ourselves that is sometimes the best antidote for our own pain, for our own sadness. Or maybe you simply need to grieve this Christmas season, and that's okay too. I still sometimes, in spite of it doesn't hurt, I'm over I'm over the bitterness. I'm over all of it, of not being included in my extended family. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters, and I still miss them sometimes. And sometimes over the holidays, I will still feel emotional, and it took me a long time to figure out that that's what it is. I am separated from my extended family, and that is not natural. That is not normal. Holidays are for family. And so sometimes I will still feel emotional, but now that I know what it is, I will sit with that for a little bit and just let it hurt, and then I'm fine. Because did you know you have to feel before you heal? So maybe you just want to grieve this season, and that's okay. Sit with your grief. Let the tears come. Let the tears flow. Because did you know healing comes from feeling, and tears cleanse the inside. Tears wash and heal our soul and our heart. So yes, there's so much we can do to brighten somebody else's grief, and who better to do that than somebody who is also grieving, because you know exactly what it feels like. So I know, again, I am no expert in grief. I am not, because I have not, like I said before, I've lost my dad, and I've lost my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, but it wasn't close to the holiday season. So that type of grief, I don't exactly know, but I do know the pain of being separated. When your family is still alive and well, of being separated from them, and that's a different kind of grief. So we all wrestle with what what's been given us, where we find ourselves at. And we don't get to choose our battles, but we do get to choose our attitudes. So this Christmas season, let's rise above whatever we're going through. Let's look around us and see who we can bless, whose day we can make brighter, whose Christmas we can make brighter. And then don't forget to have some fun. Go shopping with your children. Bake those cookies with your children. Have a hot chocolate and a movie night with, Christmas movies. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to also have a lot of fun, all while remembering the reason for the season. Another thing we do, another tradition we have that I absolutely love is on Christmas Eve, we usually go to a Christmas service somewhere, and often it will be in La Crosse, because then we love to go downtown and either walk or drive through this park. It's right beside the Mississippi River, and they have this massive light show that plays to music, and it is magical. It is magical, if I say so myself. It is so fun to either drive through there, or sometimes if it's not too cold, we park our cars and we walk through. And then after that, we all come back here to our house, and we have hot chocolate and maybe snacks, and we just stay up too late. And then the children and the grandchildren sleep here. And the next morning, we all get up, we have cinnamon rolls, and my husband either reads the Christmas story or we take turns reading it. I look forward to when the grandchildren are old enough to actually act it out, maybe. I think that would be super fun. So just some traditions that we have started with our family now, since our children are older and we can. So be thinking about that also. What fun traditions can you start with your family that they will cherish, that they will look back and remember, we did this. Now, another tradition that we had to give up that I'm sad about, because I don't give up traditions easily. Remember, I was raised very, very, it was all about tradition and a structure, and it is still hard for me sometimes to change things up and do it different. So we used to always, from the time that little, we decorated our first tree with the children, from that time until last Christmas, we would always decorate the Christmas tree together as a family on Thanksgiving Eve. Well, guess what? I've had to let go of that. And it was hard. Just being vulnerable here, it is still hard. I miss that. But it just got to the point where, first of all, after a big lunch, nobody was really in the mood to do it anymore. And there were so many of us. And then with the grandchildren, yet it just got kind of chaotic. And so my husband had a talk with me. And he said, I think it's time that we let this tradition go. You have to realize the children have homes of their own and trees of their own to put up now. And I knew he was right, even though I didn't want to admit it for a while. But he, last year, for the first time, he and I decorated our tree by ourselves, and it was kind of sad to me. But now and we just did it on a random day, I think, whatever. But now I think he and I are again going to make a tradition where we will do that instead of going Black Friday shopping, because we both know we don't really need anything unless we would go shopping for the grandkids or something. But we both do not enjoy going shopping when everybody else is out. It's too much. So we don't enjoy going shopping on that day. So we are going to start decorating our tree on the Black Friday shopping day. And then maybe that night have the grandkids over for like a movie night not movie night, a game night. Have a game night. Our little Xander, he's 4. They were here Thursday, and he so wistfully said to me, Grandma, I wish we could have a picnic again. I miss having picnics. So that kind of got my brain stirring, and I talked to my husband this morning, and we're going to put a blanket down in the living room on the carpet. We are going to have snacks, and we are going to have games with the grandchildren on Friday night. And I am so looking forward to that. So all that to say, old traditions, sometimes you have to let go, whether that's a spiritual tradition that does not serve you any longer, or whether it's just a fun tradition like putting up the tree together. Sometimes we have to let go of what was so we can grab on to what is, and staying in the present, staying in the season that God has you in. My husband and I are empty nesters. I am still sometimes trying to grasp that, to adjust to that after years and years and years of having 6 children in our home. It's an adjustment, but I'm getting more and more to where I'm okay with it and I love it, and we just have to find some new traditions, some new things that serve us in this season. So, and I think that is such a huge key in life, is to recognize when a season is done and let it go instead of trying to hang on to it and hold on to it. Because I do believe that sometimes God doesn't even allow us to see the next season until we're willing to let go of what we did have. Sometimes He does, but sometimes He doesn't. Sometimes He doesn't show us what's next, because then it creates trust. We're willing to let go of what's not working anymore, and we are opening ourselves up to the new and what's next, whether that is what's next in your life, traditions, whatever works for you and your family. And it doesn't have to look like anybody else's family. In fact, it shouldn't. It shouldn't look necessarily like anybody else's family. Find out what works for you and your children. Talk as husband and wife, what works for us in this season, and then go after it and make it the best Christmas season that you have ever had. And your children will thank you as you build those memories and celebrate Jesus together. All right, I'm going to leave you guys with that. I hope everybody has an amazing Christmas filled with God's love, blessings galore. So thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following. All of that helps us so much. More than you know, we are grateful for you. God bless you and keep you. Till next time.